100 years ere seed sown. Truth was twisted, its seeds were grown. Break the lies, spark the mission. Welcome to Quranic Inquisition.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Peace of the Lord to all of you. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, namaste. Welcome to the show. We are back with our friend Noel from Malta, who is sharing his research with us to help us understand a little bit better of what happened with the language of Arabic, how it evolved, how it moved, and hopefully like this, we will be able to understand the Quran a little tiny bit better. So welcome back to the show. Hi, Noel. How are you doing?
Hello, JC. I'm doing fine. I hope you are doing fine as well.
Yeah, I'm fine, despite of many IT issues. Hopefully, they are now resolved. If at any problems, if we have any problems with my sound or anything like this, do let me know. But hopefully, it will be fine. So, what are you going to be showing us today?
So, in the previous episode, we laid down the foundations, right? What is a language? What we have to keep in mind. And today, we're going to tackle the question of what is Arabic. So, without further ado, if you have no problems, we may start.
Yeah, absolutely. The floor
Okay.
is yours.
So, what is Arabic? Well, first of all, where is it placed? So, as most of the audience would probably know, Arabic is a Semitic part of the. It's in the Semitic family tree, right? Owens puts it right there. Okay. However, we have to maybe it would be good to ask what is Semitic, right? So, linguists had quite a tough time to pinpoint what is a language. Well, the same thing as well with what is Semitic. For example, Ollendorf could find only one trait which characterizes all the Semitic languages. And what about Arabic? Do linguists actually agree what Arabic is? Well, not exactly, right? So they don't agree what features are required to make a language Arabic. And Retza, for example, in his article, What is Arabic, actually suggests that it is even impossible to define what is Arabic, right? What markers make a language Arabic. Owens, however, suggests that this difficulty arises because Aramaic is forgotten, right? Because Aramaic had such a great influence on the different Arabic speech communities that it makes them difficult to find something which makes them all Arabic, right? So it is basically this unequal influence of Aramaic on the different Arabic speech communities that makes it hard to pinpoint what makes Arabic Arabic. And here, we have to emphasize this, right? The great influence of Aramaic on Arabic is so great that it makes Arabic undefinable. And therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that the Quran itself is influenced by Aramaic or has Aramaic words, right? Is it any clear? Can I move? Do you have any
Well,
questions?
yes, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, one of the problems, particularly when it comes to the Quran, is that they, I think, passed a fatwa saying that nobody could say that the Arabic in the Quran contains words that are not Arabic. So basically, if there is a word in there and is Hebrew or Aramaic, they will say, no, it was first Arabic, and then they copied it in the other languages instead of the other way around. And also, in terms of the Aramaic, I believe it was actually the lingua franca. So if that's the language that they're using for liturgical reasons and also to do business and these sort of things, if you had Arabic or any other languages that were not used in that manner, certainly they would be very heavily influenced by the more important languages. So yeah, it certainly makes sense that it would have a really huge influence from Aramaic.
And the influence is so great that it makes Arabic undefinable. Right? This is very important, right? Now, how does Owens define Arabic? He defines it as a composite language with clear South Semitic and Northwest Semitic affinities. So basically, there are two. If you were going to divide Arabic, then we have to divide it into basically two blobs. Let's say one is South Semitic, which is Yemeni and Omani, right? And the other one is in the Northwest, right? But what is also interesting is that these features that divide, that split Arabic into, also split the other Semitic languages. And this is, I think, very interesting. Now, according to Masmoudi, we have to ask, okay, so what are the varieties of Arabic? What are the different strands of Arabic? He classifies it into, there is the Old Arabic, there is the Classical Arabic. So the Old Arabic is the Arabic in the ancient literature. Then we have the Classical Arabic, which is the, well, he says the language of the Quran, but as we shall see later, it's not they're not exactly the same. They are the language of the Quran. Quranic Arabic is different from Classical Arabic, right? And then we have Modern Standard Arabic, which comes from Classical Arabic, right? And then the dialectical Arabic, which is the mother tongue of every Arab speaker. Now, here Wilmson makes another point, which I think is very interesting, in that Classical Arabic is very conservative because it is not the vernacular. It is not the spoken language, right? We have to also remember that the spoken language is what is not written, right? When I had my first Arabic class, it was hammered kind of into our brains. You don't write the vernacular. It cannot be written even, which in my opinion is absurd. But this was it. You cannot write and the vernacular. So here then we have kind of a contradiction, right? Because if you look at the hadith, they say, their base is very strong because of the oral tradition. Yes, but when you compare the oral tradition with the written tradition, the written tradition wins. And if we look at how much is spoken modern standard Arabic, actually few Arabs can hold a conversation in modern standard Arabic, and this becomes obvious if you look at unscripted shows like talk shows, right? When the Arabs code switch a lot between modern standard Arabic and dialectical Arabic. Although rare, there are though documents, even hadiths, that are written in the vernacular, and except for two varieties, Andalusi Arabic and Maltese. So these are the only Arabic varieties where there is a large corpus of written material on them. And therefore, it makes them very interesting to study because you can see what was the language like at that time, right?
Right. Actually, before you move on, can I ask a couple of questions? So if we were to put this in using an example that maybe more people will understand, if we thought about this in English, how would it work? Would it be that the classical, classical Arabic, classical English, if we said that is the language from Shakespeare, then Old English would be even before him. And if a modern English speaker listens to that Old English, they wouldn't understand much of it because it has morphed so much. Would that be sort of how it would work if it was in the English language?
Well, it doesn't work exactly the same because, as we saw in the previous episode, English language, it goes from one state to another state to another state. But this is not so that is the linear transition, right? But in Arabic, we don't have a linear transition, we have a multilinear transition. So we have different speech communities evolving, interacting with each other, influencing each other at different rates. So it's a bit more complicated in this case, right?
Right. Okay. And another
and with
example as
also
well.
influences with other Semitic languages, most notably Aramaic, because, as you had said before, it was the lingua franca.
Right. Okay. And then another, just thinking out loud here, I know that J. Smith has mentioned quite a few times that the hadiths, for example, are for the most part created much later, like during the Ottomans, and then they are redacted back. So with these different versions of the Arabic as it is evolving, do you have any thoughts as to whether the language used in the hadiths could tell us about the period of time when they were written, or if they would just be, or they would say no, if there are hadiths written in modern Arabic, is because they took the old Arabic and they basically just made it better. They just they didn't leave it in the old version. Do you know if the language of the hadiths could give us any clues as to when they were written?
Now I'm not very knowledgeable about this topic, right? That you the topic of the question, I mean. But well, the understanding is that the Arabs, like Arabic even today, they don't write in their vernacular, but they write in classical Arabic. So, like as long as classical Arabic, so if there was a change, it was a change in the classical Arabic, not in the vernacular itself. Very few hadiths are written in the vernacular. But this is not the case, for example, for Andalusi Arabic. And this is not the because, for example, in Andalusia, you have even the Romance languages are written in the Arabic script. And Maltese, well, it was never written in the Arabic script. So that's why we can see like the change, because, for example, in Maltese was cut off from the Arabic world.
Right.
So I don't know.
And
And I think Dr. Smith also has some new information about actually how recent the hadith collections are. So I don't know if it answers your question.
yeah, well, it's fine. I know that even if the language happens to be more modern than we thought, people would just say, well, we did have the originals in older Arabic, but then people just translated them for Al-Bukhari and so on, making them more modern. So
But
they would actually basically move from that. A separate question still on hadiths. I don't
but
know if you have it actually on
let
your
me
presentation.
just
Yep,
make
sorry,
one
go on.
point on what you said, in that classical Arabic was developed in the 8th century. Yeah, 8th or 9th century. We will see it in the slides by heart. I don't know it exactly.
Okay.
But from then it was quite conservative, right? So you've got Lisan al-Arab, but which is the dictionary, but as a language itself, kind of then it morphed into modern standard Arabic. But like everything that is written in classical Arabic. So the literary Arabic is what it is. I don't know if it's
Right.
is it
So, do you know if in
So it
Malta they
has
have
no
actually found anything like hadiths written and they would be in classical Arabic? I'm just trying to see if there were maybe hadiths found in Malta and they were written in already Maltese or it would be classical Arabic all the way.
classical Arabic all the way. Not
Okay.
hadiths. There weren't hadiths that were found, but we have poems that were written in Palermo by Maltese, and they were written in classical Arabic. We have Al Khajrat Maimuna, which is written in classical Arabic, and recently there was discovered a fragment, if I'm not mistaken, of the Quran in classical Arabic in the Kufic script, if I remember correctly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So if we are going then to look at the dialects themselves, there are various. According to Verstig, you can classify them: Verst versus East. Okay, the sedentary versus the Bedouin, and then the sedentary you can classify it even more between the urban and the rural. right? Most sedentary dialects are derived from or located in Mesopotamia. And as we said earlier, the Arabic dialects of the South Arabian Peninsula seem to have taken a different path than the other dialects because they contain many archaic features.
Okay. By archaic features, do you have any examples of what those archaic features are or what they look like?
I think we'll look about them in the next episode, I think.
Okay, cool.
But I'm not a linguist, so this is a literature review. So I kind of rested on what the different scholars are saying, right? So this is a literature review of what the scholars have said.
Okay, yeah, understood.
Okay, yeah. Now, okay, so we said that Aramaic is very important, right? In the study of Arabic, you cannot go without it. So let's look a little bit more about this Aramaic influence on Arabic. So what is not controversial is to say that Arabs and Arameans were living together for a long time, right? Or were in contact with each other for a long time. What is controversial is to say that Aramaic influenced Arabic. But Owens, in his paper, which you will find in the description, he outlines 24 detailed structured arguments of why. He goes into phonology, morphonology, morphology, syntax, right, to support his argument, right? And as we said, Aramaic is no surprise, right, of why of this Aramaic influence on Arabic, because Aramaic was the lingua franca. Lingua franca means like what is the lingua franca today is English, right? You, in order to communicate with someone else, everyone knows this language. As we already said, they have been in contact since the first attestation of Aramaic. So in the first Aramaic written documents, or let's say written, the word cannot come to my mind now. Written, anyway, the evidence that we have of Aramaic, of things written in Aramaic, let's cut it short like this, right? Arabs are mentioned. So the contact have been going on since we know about Arameans. And it hasn't existed as an interpretable object, therefore, for a long time. Now, it is complicated because, as we said before, these two speakers, Arabic and Aramaic, they were in contact for different degrees across in different eras. So he said there are two periods. One is pre-Islamic and the other one is post-Islamic. The Arabic, in pre-Islamic, Arabic was just another Semitic language. As we already said, and Aramaic was spoken in the Middle East everywhere, and it was also spoken in the Arabian Peninsula, and even it might have influence as far south as Yemen. But what one can notice is as one moves closer to Islam, more Arabic inscriptions and papyri became more predominant. In the post-Islamic period, then we have the Arabic-Islamic expansion and then contraction, and this contraction left Sprachen. So basically, you've got islands cut off from the main Arabic populations that are still speaking in Arabic, and therefore these take their own path, basically.
Okay. Actually, before we move on, can we, if you can go back to the previous one, have maybe a couple of questions. Okay. So we had then Aramaic that already had a script, and it had a script for a really long time. So, and it was the lingua franca. They used it for liturgical reasons. So it would have
Aramaic.
already, yes, Aramaic.
Not
it
only
would have
for
then,
liturgical, just
Yeah, business and recording documents. It was a more advanced language, but they also had the script, and it was therefore the language, the go-to language, if you had to write things down. I think the
Or if you had
earliest
to travel, for
attestation,
example,
yes,
to
and
communicate with other people that are not speaking your language, you had to know Aramaic. It would be better to know Aramaic.
yeah, and people actually travel a lot back in those days. We actually keep thinking always like, no, people are just in one village, but no, people actually moved about quite a bit. But okay, so we had the Aramaic language with that influence. It would therefore, oh, by the way, Gabriel Reynolds says very clearly that the people from this region, they were bilingual. Not many people actually use the term that boldly, but he does. It's like, yes, we have to accept these people were bilingual. They spoke
Exactly.
Arabic. If they spoke Arabic, they spoke Aramaic. And, you know, they are finding more and more dual inscriptions and things like that. So that should now be established.
Well,
That's
it wouldn't
great.
be. Sorry, just to interject, it would be everyone would know Aramaic and Arabic, because even now, not everyone knows, let's say, English, right? But of course, if it's the lingua franca, then there was a lot of bilingualism going on.
Yeah. And when I think as well, something that might have happened, I'm just speculating, but I think it must have happened, is that if you have the Arabic is actually used in one context, and then the Aramaic is used in another context, by the time that then Arabic is becoming more, it starts to grow and take over land, basically, like you're writing here, getting closer to Islam, then they don't have the vocabulary from Arabic to tackle with those things. They would be using the basically Aramaic, a little bit like in English, when you have the names, for example, like say pig and pork. So pork is the food and pig is the animal, and it's because they come from two different influences and how it was being used. I assume that something similar would need to happen if Arabic is actually used on your everyday life, but is not used for religious matters or for business matters or things like that. As Islam starts to expand, they need to take the more advanced words from Aramaic, just like we have words like Messiah, even in English, but the word, I guess the original is Hebrew. And because that word is so packed with meaning, everybody starts to copy that word. We don't invent a new one. We just copy it from those people who have that very well established word. And I guess the same must have happened with Arabic. They have their language, but it is poor in terms of very advanced and difficult concepts they would need to borrow from those around them. And when you put all of that into account, it would need to be Aramaic before they take from Hebrew or Ge'ez, because they would be speaking in Aramaic, right?
Yes, this is a topic that like interests me a lot, even for my own language, right? For Maltese. When is a word adopted and when is it translated? So we have to start with this first of all, right? That whoever invents something, then it moves to the other languages. Um, so let's say now the lingua franca is English. Let's say if you want to write a paper, it's better if you do it in English because it will have more audience, right? Now, then let's say if we take, let's say, the variety of Arabic that I know the most, which is Maltese, right? We started as Arabic, but then because of the other influences from Europe, then those words, some of them were translated to Maltese, and the others were, as time, especially as time went by, they were absorbed into Maltese. So let's say we have the word for midday, nofsenar, right? Sorry, for south, which is nofsenar. It's like in Italian when you have mezzogiorno, but we don't say mezzogiorno, but we say nofsenar. And I have a very good example. The for the wind vane is a good example for this, right? So we have the west and the east. They were not retranslated, but they were adopted from Italian. But the word for south was translated. Why? That's a good question. So of course. So just to make this is just to make your conclusion. Well, probably yes, but not always. I would say.
Okay, yeah, it's
So
still
of course,
a bit of a mess. Let's see what else we find.
yes, yes. In the sense that and also have to remember another thing, right? That the Arabic script is derived from the Aramaic script. So certainly, we should not be astonished because of the influence of Aramaic into Arabic.
Yeah, and was created, I always forget, I think it's either 4th or 5th century, probably 4th century, the earliest attestations of something actually written in Arabic. And yeah, if you look at ancient manuscripts, the script is almost like copy pasted, just changing the letters around. But certainly,
Sorry, 6th century, if I'm not mistaken. Between
um,
500 and 600 AD, if I'm not mistaken.
I
But
think
certainly
I've
it
only,
was in the Nabatean area. We'll
yeah,
see
I've
it
only
later
seen
on.
this. I think it was from a video from Thomas Alexander that you've mentioned before. That there is, I think, near Edessa, if I remember correctly, one monastery or something like that, and
Yes,
it
yes,
had
yes, yes.
actually carved. And
Yeah,
I
I
never
remember
remember.
that
I think it
episode.
was, yeah. So I remember the number 4. So I can't remember if it was in the 400s or if it was the 4th century and it was the 300s.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's around that time. But yeah, Aramaic was already very, very well established by that point.
The whole point of this episode is just to show how that we cannot study Arabic without with or let me rephrase it, of the great influence that Aramaic has on Arabic.
Right.
Arabic presence in the Levant, yes, we already kind of we said it in the previous slide, like large number of Arabs in Edessa in southern Turkey. I believe this is what Thomas Alexander mentioned, right? That first script that we just talked about, right? The Arabic Aramaic overlap. Sorry, here I missed a point, which is the Palmyrian kingdom, right? It was not Arab, but had lots of Arabic names in its inscriptions, and even Queen Zenobia was probably Arab. And according to Strabo, Armenians, Syrians, and Arabs, Syrians he means Arameans, right? And Arabs were so similar in bodily build, language, and mode of life, that they were very similar to each other, especially when they were living close to each other. We've got the Nabateans. So, and like the Chaldeans, they were a super ethnic identity. So it means that they were an identity. I'm Nabatean, for example, but the speaker can be either Arabic or Aramaic. And the same happened with the Chaldeans. They wrote in the Aramaic script, but were different. So here we have a kind of a discrepancy, right? Because according to Owens, the first to write in Arabic in the Aramaic script were actually in Namara in southern Syria. But this is according to Owens, so we have to maybe see a little bit more what Thomas Alexander is saying as well, right?
Okay, so that would mean that the language that they are speaking is the equivalent of if you are actually now trying to write something in English, but then you're using, say, the Arabic script for some reason, or when we do it the other way around, when we have the English transliteration into how to read the Arabic. So it would be something like that, right? So Arabic
now actually I
words.
remember. I think now I remember the episode. Yes. So here what we're saying is that the Arabic itself was written in Aramaic. But what Thomas Alexander said, if I remember correctly, was that it was the Arabic script. So it was the first Arabic script.
Right. Okay.
Even you said it, right? The eldest Arabic script. Because here what we're saying is Aramaic script.
Yeah.
So the language is the same, just the script is different. And so this is finally the conclusion, right? That there was a large socio-geographic overlap between themselves, and therefore, why all this? Why is it good for us, right? That when we're reading the Quran, it shouldn't come as a surprise that something is derived from Aramaic.
Right. So
Now,
we have to, we cannot separate the two. We cannot actually say, okay, so it would have been Arabic. For many things, we need to actually look at the Aramaic because the original word would have come from Aramaic and then it made it into what then became Arabic, right?
well, I would caution that. I would just say, look at Christoph Luxemburg's 7 steps. I believe it was Christoph Luxemburg, not Gabriel Sauma. This was on Dr. J. Smith's presentation. He has his 7 steps, So what you do first? You go, you check in the Arabic, does it make sense? Then if it's not satisfied in Arabic, where do you go? You go to Aramaic. And that's how he managed to crack, for example, the dark passages in the Quran, by going to this every word using this system.
Right. Okay.
So as we said before, lingua franca by definition implies bilingualism, and we have inscriptions that attest to this, right? That, for example, in this specific Nabatean inscription, that you have elements of both Arabic and Aramaic, and it means that people were either code switching, so in a sentence they speak half Arabic, half Aramaic, or even using, switching from one language or another, or even in the same sentence, they sometimes spoke in Arabic and then in Aramaic, right? If you don't know what I'm saying, come to Malta and you will hear people code switching between Maltese and English. So if you can do it between Maltese, which is an Arabic language, and English, which is Germanic, then it is far easier to do between two Semitic languages, right?
Yep, and actually I have heard that myself. Is actually what I mentioned before, that when I have been there, it's odd as to like how people they speak, and they speak many languages. When I have been there, they have spoken to me as well in other languages, so it's actually phenomenal. And now when you said that, I remember as well that particularly when you hear like like Hindu, I think I can't remember if it is actually Hindu, Punjabi is a particular language, and you will see a person speaking that language, and then they will start using English words in the middle. So you don't understand anything, and then suddenly you understand this word and that word because they've just taken it from English. So it's quite curious.
This is the effect of the assault of the English kind of on the other languages by social media. Okay, so we have other inscriptions as well that reflect this, that people sometimes they did not know only their own language, but they knew others, right? As Owens cites these examples. Okay, so how did everything change? Well, in the region that the Romans called Palestine, like from 500 to 800 AD, we see in this period between 500 to 800, we see a gradual shift in the liturgical language of the Palestinian monasteries, from Greek to Aramaic or from Greek to Arabic, right? At the same time, the people start to stop speaking Aramaic and start to speak in Arabic. And by the 18th century, right, the Christian Palestinian Aramaic had died out and replaced by Arabic. In the wider world, we see Aramaic to Arabic transition happened also gradually, but a century later, so from 600 AD to 900 AD. So we have to imagine that even until 900 AD, Aramaic was widely spoken, even by non-native speakers, not only in the Middle East, but wherever the Arabic Islamic diaspora went. Right? So even when this entity was conquering other countries, it was bilingual in both Arabic and Aramaic. Not everyone, of course, but it was quite common, let's say.
Okay, and they would actually bring both languages
Exactly.
with them.
Exactly. And I have a surprise. I don't know if we'll do it today or will in this episode or next, but I have a surprise for you. Now, okay, so he goes on, okay, Owens. He says the original Aramaic features were okay. What we have want, what he's saying here. He's saying that what is the result? The result is that after this period, or during the latter parts of this period, and after when Aramaic died, it's not that Aramaic died, right? But the Arabic, or Arabic was, let's say, inherited Aramaic linguistical traits. And these Aramaic linguistical traits then continue to evolve, but within the Arabic tongue. Okay? An example, for example, is the preposition L marking definite direct object. So basically, it's something when you say to. In this case, this is a Maltese example. It's right lilom. So it is the L, right? Lil, actually, lil hom lilom. In classical Arabic, it would be ra aituhom, right? And this L marking definite direct object sometimes is explained because of the Latin influence on Arabic from de to le. But Owen says it does make more sense to not think of it as a Latin influence on Arabic, but more of an Aramaic influence on Arabic, because in Aramaic they have this instead of lil they say dil. And when we think about the history and how Arameans and the Arabs were in contact with each other much more closely than the Romans' languages were on the Arabic, and especially here he's saying, for example, even Uzbeki Arabic, like so far away from the Roman influence, right? And yet we find you cannot explain it as a Roman influence, right? A better way to explain it is through Aramaic. Again, we have another form, and this is the relative clause marker, right? And there is something similar as well in Berber. And but still, Owens concludes that, and here I have the quote, right? It's better to think of it of an Aramaic influence on Arabic rather than the Berber influence on the Arabs that were in North Africa. If I may go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
So, okay.
Oh, okay, is this going to be next section?
We can actually put it in the next section, yes.
Okay.
Because now I see that the time is quite 45 minutes, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
so
can
just trying to keep the shows on a particular length, so like these people are as well aware. But anyway, so far everything that you have shown, I think we are seeing very clearly that it is not as clear cut as, okay, look, there is like a dictionary of Arabic from the 7th century and that's the language, but it was actually a very messy affair where people speak two languages. They are borrowing at different degrees depending on the place where they live, and the whole thing is really, really messy. And in order to delve into the Arabic, one is basically delving at the same time into the Arabic and the Aramaic, because it's very it's impossible to really draw a line when a word has been taken from Aramaic and then it's used as it becomes part of Arabic. You still have to go to the Aramaic, even though it has become part of Arabic probably later on, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. And then the Malta, just to actually ask briefly, so the Arabic when did Arabic actually get to Malta, roughly?
Mid 9th century. So we're talking about the beginning, at the same time that the Sahih al-Bukhari is written according to the Sin. So 850s.
Right. So at the time when things are basically starting to really cook and really start to be very important. Okay, so that's actually phenomenal. So I see that then next time you will be talking about the Aramaic influence on Arabic, which is phenomenal. Looking forward to that one. And Noel, thank you very much. This has been actually great and eye-opener. Normally we know that Aramaic is important because we have heard names like Christoph Laxenburg or Gunther Luring, Gabriel Sauma, things like that. But to actually get this information from, in your case, an Arabic speaker who sees how your current language evolved from all of these different influences gives you the great perspective to be able to know what influences were from, either French, Italian, English, and so on, and how that would have happened hundreds of years prior. So it is actually an invaluable resource. So thank you very much for actually taking the time to putting all of these things together and coming here to tell me and tell our audience.
Well, I would like to, because I'm finally a speaker of my own bubble, so I would really like to thank the scholars that made all this information available online for me to read and make into a PowerPoint.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, all credit to them. Some people have spent decades studying things and then they give us the final outcome and it helps us move on from there. Phenomenal. All right. Well, Noel, thank you very much for the show. It's been amazing. Would you like to say any words before we close off for today?
Thank you. Thank you and good day.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Noel, and thank you everyone watching. I hope that you are enjoying this series with Noel. So make sure that you like, share, subscribe, leave any comments that you have on the comment section, and any other scholars that you know that have more information that can help us understand what happened with the language of the Quran. That would be much appreciated. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you have a very good week ahead, and we will see you next time. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
There is only one Quran, right? Every Quran in the world is the same. That's what you've been told. You have been told a lie! 26 different Quran!
There are 0 Dawa guys apparently left on the planet who are willing to defend Muhammad in a debate.
Everybody can go and read it. This is a book full of mistakes in Arabic, in the grammar, in the spelling, in the pronunciation.
Whoever wrote the Quran made an error because they didn't quite understand what was written in the 7th century in the Torah and the Injil.
As promised, I will give you more than 20 reasons why I left Islam in this video.
We know that stories about Muhammad were made up on an industrial scale.
What in the world is this Injil?